So good morning, everyone, and so nice to see you all again. So let's talk about the appearances. Yeah, the things that appears to the mind. So we say the things that appears to the mind are all mind. Yeah. For example, the heaven, the hell, they all just appears to the mind. And they're all the mind's nature. Yeah. And also like the Shantideva, he says in the Bodhicharya Avatar, he says that the hell realm, the hungry realm, they all are just mind. Yeah. They all are just the appearance to the mind, and then whatever appears to the mind is the nature of the mind. Yeah. Or we can also say in a different way, we can say that the mind manifests into them. Yeah, so we can say the mind also manifests into hell realm, right? The mind manifests into heaven, the mind, right? So the mind manifests into the hungry ghost realm. And it's not, willingly. So the mind manifests into them unwillingly. Yeah? Or we can also say that the mind appears. Yeah, so the mind appears as them. Yeah? The mind appears as hell, and then the mind also appears as heaven, and then the mind also appears as these things. Yeah. So why do mind manifest as them? Yeah? So why does mind appear as them? Yeah? The true nature of the mind is not heaven, and the true nature of the mind is not hell, and the true nature of the mind is not suffering. Yeah? But still, the mind appears as different experiences. Yeah? Sometimes the mind can appear as a human being. Sometimes the mind can appear as a hell being. Sometimes as a god. Yeah. So why do the mind appears as them? If the mind is not there, why do mind manifest as them? So we say, mind manifests as them, mind appears as them because there is a cause. Yeah. And then the cause is the cause is the karmic imprint. We have the karmic imprint, and that is the cause. So mind is not the hell, mind is not the heaven, but mind has a cause to be manifest as heaven, or mind has a cause to be manifest as hell. Yeah. And also similarly, mind is not heaven, and then mind is not hell, but mind appears as heaven, mind appears as hell, because because there is a cause. Yeah, and then the cause is the karmic imprint. So when the mind meets the karmic imprint, yeah, so the nature of the mind is pure, but when the mind meets the karmic imprint, when they are in touch, and then you create appearances, and then you create manifestations. Yeah, and that's not, so the mind has no power. Yeah? The mind has no control over that. When this causes comes, and then the mind meets with this, the causes, and then starts the appearances, and then starts the manifestation. Yeah. So when the mind meets this karmic imprint, and then the appearances come, yeah, and then they come, and then they generate it. So where does this, karmic imprint comes from? Yeah, because the mind is clean, but when the mind meets the karmic imprint, and then the appearances show up. So where does this karmic imprint comes from? And then the text says, this karmic imprint comes from self-attachment. Yeah. So when you have self-attachment, and then self-attachment is the one to create this karmic imprint, and then once you have the karmic imprint, and then the mind and the karmic imprint, they meet, and then you have appearances. Okay? And self-attachment, can create this karmic imprint. So why does self-attachment can create karmic imprint? How does self-attachment create karmic imprint? Because self-attachment is not the nature of the mind. Yeah. So a new imprint is kept in the mind. When you have self-attachment. Yeah. And if you don't have self-attachment, if you have non-attachment, and then the non-attachment is the nature of the mind, so no new imprint is kept on the mind. Yeah. So when there's no new imprint kept on the mind, and then there's no new appearances. But when the self-attachment comes, so self-attachment is not the nature of the mind, so a new imprint comes. Yeah? And then a new imprint is kept on the mind. And when the new imprint is kept on the mind and the new imprint, they meet, and then they create appearances. So that's why we say self-attachment is the root of samsara. Yeah? Self-attachment is the root of appearances. Whether you have the positive appearances or whether you have a negative appearances, self-attachment is the root of these things. Yeah? Now if you ask, where does this self-attachment comes from? Yeah? And then we say self-attachment comes by not knowing the mind. Yeah? So when you don't know the mind, when you don't know the nature of the mind, and when you don't know the nature of the phenomena, and then comes self-attachment, and then you cling to something which is not there. Yeah? Self is not there, but you think self is there, and then you start clinging. So self-attachment is born from ignorant mind. Self-attachment is born from not knowing the mind, not knowing the phenomena, and then this self-attachment will also have the subject-object, right, the duality, and then you work for yourself, right, and then you do actions for yourself, and then from these actions, the karmic imprint is made, yeah, and also habit comes. So the more you do things from self-attachment, yeah, so if you think for yourself, because for millions of years we have been doing that. Yeah? We have self-attachment, and then we have been doing action, and this action has been turning into habit. And then now we say it's the tendencies. These tendencies comes. yeah. So this, yeah. So this, these tendencies, this habit, it comes from self-attachment. Yeah, when you have self-attachment and then you do an action. So from many lifetimes we have self-attachment and then we do actions. And then from these actions, and then you do the same action with the same intention, the self-attachment, and then action, again self-attachment, action, and then it becomes a habit. Yeah? And this habit, it turns into the tendencies. And then in your next life, when you're born, and you still have this habit of doing things for yourself. Yeah? And you want to do everything for yourself. And we also say, so when self-attachment, when you do an action, and then you create a habit, and then you create an imprint on your mind, and this imprint is saved in the mind. Yeah? And then so we know we have these 8 kinds of consciousness. And then from the 8 consciousness, we have the 8th consciousness, which is the base of the consciousness. So we say the imprint is stored in that base. Yeah? Yeah. And then when you have this self-attachment, and then you do an action. So now you have these two kinds of action you can do from self-attachment. Right? Sometimes you can harm people, or you can harm sentient beings, and sometimes you can do good things for the sentient beings from this self-attachment. Yeah? So when you do a good thing, right, and when you don't harm people from self-attachment, we say it's a good, so we say it's a good action. And if you do things which will harm sentient beings, and then we say it's a bad action. Yeah, because when you do good things to people from this self-attachment, right, and then the positive imprint is kept on the mind. Okay, and when you do, so when you try to harm people from self-attachment, and then a negative imprint is kept on the mind, and then from this imprint, yeah, the positive imprint, and then the negative imprint, the world is created. Yeah, so from the good imprint, you have good things in life, and then from this bad imprint, from the negative imprint, you create a negative imprint, and then from this negative imprint, you create a negative, appearances. Yeah, but we have to know that if you have self-attachment, and if you do something from self-attachment, even if you do a good thing or even if you do a bad thing, an imprint is kept on the mind. Yeah? So that's why when you do something from self-attachment, the good things or a bad thing, the imprint is kept. So it's not the causes for liberation. Yeah? It's causes for samsara. And it's maybe good samsara, good appearances, or maybe a bad appearances, but it's still inside samsara because you do it from self-attachment. And if you do it from self-attachment, the imprint is there, and then the imprint can be, the positive imprint or the negative imprint. Yeah. So what is the remedy for this? Yeah. Because we have to do actions. Yeah. Post meditation period, we have to eat, we have to walk, we have to talk. Right. So what is the remedy? Because we have self-attachment all the time. So what is the remedy? And then we say the remedy is to think of the other people. Yeah? So when you do something, when you eat, try not to do from self-attachment. Try by doing, thinking for other people. And if you do it, right? So whenever you do an action, you have to think of other people, because and then you stop the self-attachment. Because if you do it from self-attachment, and then the new imprint is created again. But if you do it with the intention of trying to help other people, there's no self-attachment, and then you don't create a new imprint on your mind. Yeah? So that's why in the text we say the bodhicitta mind is very important, and you have to have the bodhicitta mind in every actions. Yeah? So when you do an action, if you do it with the bodhicitta mind, and that is mind training also, and then you're trying to cut the root of samsara. But if you don't do it with the bodhicitta mind, with trying to help others, if you do it with self-attachment, and then there's no mind training, right? So it does not become the cause of liberation, it becomes the cause of samsara. Yeah, and when you do it, with the intention of trying to help others, what happens is, firstly, it does not create any imprint on your mind, because it's not from self-attachment, right? And then the secondly is, when you do it by helping others, by the intention of helping others, what happens is, you also will remove the tendencies. Yeah? You have so much tendencies, you have so much habit, yeah? And then this habit has been piling up, on the 8th consciousness, doing things for yourself. And then the moment you do things for the other people, So what happens is this can also remove the habit. Yeah? So just the action can remove the habit. Yeah? And not knowing the truth. Because sometimes, just by knowing the truth, the habits are still there, and then the habits are still strong, still very strong. Yeah? So just knowing the truth is not enough. We have to do action. And we have to do some actions which is not by self-attachment. We have to remove the self-attachment habit. So we have to do something contrary to the self-attachment habit. So in that case, we can have the bodhicitta mind, and then we do everything with bodhicitta mind. And then the more you do action with the bodhicitta mind, the more you train yourself, and then the less imprint on your mind, and also you remove the tendencies. Yeah. And so that's why we need the bodhicitta mind. It's very important. And then to have the bodhicitta mind, right, to think, to do for the sentient beings. I mean, in the text we have these two ways, right? Two ways to cultivate the bodhicitta mind. Yeah? So we have this, two traditions. So the first tradition comes from Manjushri, and then Nagarjuna, the Madhyamika tradition. And then from this tradition also, you can have the bodhicitta mind, right? So you can try to cultivate, the bodhicitta mind. And also we have the other way from, from the Maitreya, from Maitreya Sangha, the Yogacharya way. And also from this tradition also we can, so we can also try to cultivate the bodhicitta mind. Yeah, and then, yeah.
Yes. Rinpoche, maybe because we are doing here Lojong since 2 years, you can say in which group Lojong is put for Matisha, Lojong in our lineage.
Yeah, so I think it's in the both lineage. Yeah, so when you do the Lojong, so you take the bodhicitta vow from these two lineage, maybe from the other one or maybe from this one, and then you do Lojong. Yes, Lojong belongs to both practices. Yes, Lojong is the practice of mind training. So when you have the bodhicitta vow, so you can take the bodhicitta vow from the Maitreya system, or you can take the bodhicitta vow from the Nagarjuna system, and then you have the bodhicitta vow, and then you can do Lojong. Yeah? And then once you do the mind training, then it's the same. So you're just trying to train your mind.
Did I understand right? Did you say that actions with bodhicitta
Yes.
don't create imprints in the basic or just imprints, but imprints who are leading to enlightenment? No imprints or imprints which are leading to enlightenment?
So I think we can say that it creates something, but not imprint. Yeah, but you have to check. Because since it's not the cause of samsara, right? And then the imprint can be the cause of samsara. Yeah? Because from this imprint, samsara is born. So when this imprint ripe, and then you have samsara. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think that in other realms than the human realm it's possible to do mind training for animals or for half gods?
So in the other realms, can we do mind training?
Yes.
I think maybe not, because the text says that we cannot do. So it's just the human beings who can do mind training, but not the animals, and not even the god. Yeah. So the god also, they don't do mind training also.
Which means that an animal is bound to fall down to the next lower realm because it's not able to do any. So that means that the way is going down or not up.
Yeah. In the text, they say sometimes that the animals also have some good karma, right? Stored from the past lives, maybe once in the past life. So this can come up. Yeah. So sometimes this can come up. Yeah. But it's very hard, So the text also says, when you're born as an animal, it's very hard to come up because it keeps going down. Yeah? So you have to be very careful of the animal realm, because once you're born there and then you keep going down, because it's very hard to have the coming back. And sometimes by luck, So we also say the human birth is by luck. I mean, not by luck, but by a very thin chance that you get a human life. Right? So we think now it's okay, so easy to have a human birth, but then from the text we say it's from the karma, and then so it's from a good karma, and also by a very slim luck that you get a human birth. Yeah, so that's why it's very precious. Human birth is very precious, and then once you have that, and then you have to start to train. Yeah.
So you said the text says, so which text is it?
Yeah. I mean, the precious human birth, we can say the Bodhicharya Avatara also says, right? It talks about the precious human birth, and also Samgonto practice, Samgonto text, also Tahotargin, the general ornaments of liberation. It also talks about the precious human birth, and then the karma, and all this, yeah? Okay, so we can go on to the next. Okay, so let's talk about the mind. So, so what is the mind? Okay, and so in the conventional sense, we say that I'm thinking, I'm tired, I'm happy, right? I'm seeing, I'm dreaming, right? So it's not the I who's doing this. Yeah? So we say, the mind is doing this. Yeah? So we say I'm thinking, I'm tired, but it's not the I, it's the mind who's doing this. Yeah? So the mind is the one, that sees the things. Yeah? So the one that sees the thing is the mind, and then the one that hears the sound is the mind, the one that tastes is the mind, the one that smells is the mind, and then, right, and then, so the one who thinks also the concept, is the mind, and also the one that hopes, we have hope is also the mind, and also the one that thinks I'm good, I'm bad, so it's not the I who's doing that, but it's the mind. The mind thinks I'm good, I'm bad, and also the one that fears is also the mind, and also the one that feels pain is also the mind. The one that has compassion is the mind, right? The one that is also angry is the mind, So the mind can appear as different things, And if you have the mind, and then you can appear as many things, right? And if you don't have the mind, and then mind cannot appear as different things. For example, if you so for example, if you don't have the mind, right, and then you cannot think, and then you cannot see, you cannot hope, you cannot have the compassion mind. For example, so we can take stone as an example. The stone has no mind, so the stone cannot see, and the stone cannot feel, and the stone cannot think, hope, conceptualize everything. But we have the mind. So that's why we're able to think, we're able to conceptualize, we're able to do everything with the mind. And in the text again, in the Sema text, we say the mind has two qualities. The first quality is that the mind is the subject, and then the mind is an experiencer, the thing which can experience. Okay, so the mind is the subject, and then the mind is the experiencer. The thing which can experience is the mind, and the things that cannot experience is not the mind. For example, the stone. The stone is not the mind because the stone does not have the property to experience. The mind is the mind because the mind has the property to experience. So when you say experience, it's also like a subject. Okay, and now comes the question. So how does the mind, right? How can the mind experience things and not the stone? How can the stone not experience things? How can the mind? Why is the mind only experiencing things, right? And then so we say because of the second quality, we have the clear nature. So we say the mind is of the clear nature. So that's why the mind can experience things. Whereas the stone is not of clear nature, so the stone will not experience things. And then when you say the clear nature, it also means, the mind has the property to absorb and also to reflect. Yeah, stone, they don't have the property to, stone does not have the property to absorb and then to reflect. Yeah, so that's why the stone is not of clear nature. The mind is of clear nature because it has the property to absorb and also to reflect. Yeah, so that's why the mind is of the clear nature. Right? So when we say, when we talk about the mind, okay, the properties of the mind, there are mostly two qualities. The first quality is that the mind is of clear nature, something that can take in, and then something that can also reflect. And also the second quality is something that is an experiencer. Yeah. So the both should be there, to be called as a mind. Yeah. And how do we know that the mind is of the clear nature? Right. So how do you know the stone is not of clear nature, or what is the meaning of clear nature? Right. So we can, we can take the example. First, we need to prove that the mind can reflect, and then the mind can absorb. So when you can prove something that can absorb and something that can also reflect, so we say it's a clear nature. Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing we have to prove is the mind can absorb and then the mind can reflect. So when you prove that the mind can absorb and the mind can reflect, and then we can say the mind is of clear nature. Yeah. So we can take the dog's image as an example, and we can say, a dog's image will not appear on the lake if the lake does not have the property to absorb and then to reflect. Yeah, I'll say it again. So a dog's image will not appear on the lake if the lake does not have the property to absorb and to reflect. Yeah? And since the dog image do appears on the lake, so we say, therefore the lake has the property to absorb and reflect. Yeah? And likewise, a dog's image will not appear on the mind if the mind does not have the property to absorb and then to reflect. Yeah? And since the dog's image do appears on the mind, we say the mind has the property, to reflect, to absorb and then to reflect. Yeah? And likewise, a dog's image will not appear on the stone if the stone does not have the property to absorb and to reflect. But since the dog image does not appear on the stone, so it means the dog has no properties to absorb and to reflect. Yeah? Yes?
Could you repeat what you mean by absorb, and maybe can you give me the Tibetan word for absorb?
The Tibetan word is Tibetan word reflect. Yulgi namden to keba. So Yulgi namden to keba. Yeah, Yulgi namden to keba. So I mean the Tibetan word is absorb the reflect. Simba, Jubarwa. Yeah, Simba. And then to reflect is color, reflect color. Reflect la. Jubarwa. Yeah. So to sim or to ju is to absorb, and then to reflect means like a mirror. Yeah, so you have to reflect. It's not a text terminology, I think. Right? If you try to find the word in the text, I think it's not a text terminology. Yeah. Yeah. So we say, the dog's, and now, it's coming back to the dog's image. A dog's image will not appear on the lake if the lake does not have the property, to reflect. So, since the dog's image do appears on the lake, we can say, the lake has the property to reflect. Yeah? And likewise, if you go to the mind, right? So a dog's image will not appear on the mind if the mind does not have the property to reflect. Yeah? And then so we can talk about the reflect, so we can talk, it's coming. Yeah? So what is it trying to reflect? Right? And also, since the dog image, and then likewise, a dog's image will not appear on the mind if the mind does not have the property to absorb and to reflect. But since the dog's image do appears on the mind, so we say the mind has the properties, to absorb and to reflect. Yeah. And likewise, a dog's image will not appear on the stone if it does not have the property to absorb and to reflect. But the dog's image too appears on the stone. So we say, the stone does not have, the dog's image does not appear on the stone. So therefore we can say the stone does not have the property to absorb and to reflect. Yeah. So we can think about this, And then comes, and then comes the second thing. So when the mind has the property to absorb and to reflect, and then we say it's of the clear nature. Yeah, something that can reflect has the properties of the clear nature, like the mirror. So we can also say the mirror is like the clear nature. Yeah, because the mirror has the property to absorb and to reflect. Yeah, if you put something in front of the mirror, the mirror has the property to take in the image and then to reflect. Yeah. So likewise, if something that has the property, if something that has the property to reflect is of the clear nature, just like the mirror. Yeah. Okay, it's like the mirror, and then okay. If something that has the property if something that has the property to absorb and to reflect, it's of the clear nature, just like the mirror. So since the mind has the property to absorb and to reflect, we say therefore the mind is of the clear nature. Yeah, and then and the same thing. Yeah? Something that has the property to absorb and to reflect is of the clear nature. And the stone, they don't have this property to absorb and to reflect, so therefore the stone is not of the clear nature. Yeah. So so when we say reflect, now comes Okay, and now we have this so we have these many statements. Yeah, that the mind can reflect, but the stone cannot reflect. Right? So what does that mean? So it means, so we have the karmic imprint, yeah, and then the mind, so we say the mind, right? So when we have the karmic imprint, right? So when you have the karmic imprint, and then the mind will absorb the karmic imprint, and then the mind, so the mind will manifest as the karmic imprint. Yeah. So that's what I meant by reflect. Yeah, and the stone, he cannot do that. Yeah? Stone cannot absorb the karmic imprint. Stone cannot engage with the karmic imprint, and it cannot manifest as the karmic imprint. But the mind can manifest. Yeah? And then the mind, when it meets the karmic imprint, right? So it absorbs in a way. It absorbs the karmic imprint, and then it reflects, and then it manifests as the karmic imprint. Yeah. So we need, we need this, right? So we need this both the qualities, yeah, the clear nature and then the experiencer, because some things, they have the clear nature, yeah, just like the mirror. The mirror is of the clear nature, yeah. Okay, the mirror is of the clear nature, but the mirror is not the experiencer. Yeah. So to be called the mind, there should be both qualities, yeah, the clear nature and also the experiencer. Yeah. So so the text will never say, okay, we only need one quality, right? Because if you say, just the clear nature is the mind, and then maybe the mirror can be called as the mind, because the mirror has the property to, to reflect. Yeah? So that's why we say, okay, there are two qualities. The first quality is that the mind should be able, that thing should be able to absorb and to reflect. And then the second property is that, not just doing that, but it also should have the property to experience, what it's trying to reflect. Yeah. Okay, and now comes the two question. Yeah, the first thing is, okay, dog's image do appear on the mirror, and also dog's image do appears on the mind. Yeah, so they both are trying to reflect. Okay, and they both are trying to reflect, but you say, that the dog's image appears on the mirror, but then the mirror is not experiencing the dog's image. Yeah, but we say, the mind, the dog's image appears on the mind, and the mind is experiencing the dog's image. Right? So how do you know that? Right? Because both image, because both are of the clear nature. The mirror is also trying to absorb and to reflect, the outer things, and the mind is also trying to absorb and to reflect the karmic imprints. Right? So, so both are trying to do that. So both are of clear nature, the mirror and the mind. Right? But you say, one can experience and then one cannot. And then the text says again, so the main reason why we say that the mind can experience is that the mind can remember. Yeah. So when the mind can remember, it means it has experienced that thing in the past. Yeah. So when you say remember, it means something you have, something you have experienced in the past, and then you can remember. Yeah. So if you have not experienced that thing in the past, so there's no way to remember. Yeah. I'm not talking about what you can see. Yeah. See. Okay, maybe you can see something new, right? But if you want to remember something, then you have to experience something in the past. Yeah. So we can say the mirror, the dog's image do appears on the mirror, and the dog's image do appears on the mind, right? And when the dog is gone, the image is gone, right? And there's no image on the mirror. But the mind, so when the dog's image is gone, still it can remember the past image. Yeah? And it can remember the past image because it has experienced the dog's image. Yeah? So at that time, it has experienced the dog's image.
I did not understand now when you speak of the mind and the mirror. Do you mean the mirror-like quality of the mind, or like something else?
So when I say the mirror, so we have the mirror, the normal mirror.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, just as an example.
Yeah, just as an
normal
example.
mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with reflect, you just mean show back, or is there also a process of thinking involved?
I think there's no process of thinking, so it's just something is there and then you reflect.
Yeah, the mirror is then also very neutral, no? No attachment, no aversion, just like
Yes, yeah. Yeah. So maybe we can meditate for 5 minutes. Okay.